Let's visit the 90s all over again. Put on those hammer pants. This is Dope Nostalgia.
It's very good to have you here for episode 72 of Dope Nostalgia. I'm your host, Naomi. So this is the first time where I was able to get every single member of one group to come on the show. We talked with Jake, right? We talked with Angela, both a farmer's daughter, and now we've talked with Shauna Ray. Shauna Ray Samograd will be joining us today, all the way from Florida. And we had a beautiful, beautiful conversation about her experiences as a country music singer and everything she went through in Farmer's Daughter and what she's up to now. So we're going to be getting to that interview very shortly. I won't be doing a Wikipedia moment today because since we have covered the history of Farmer's Daughter, this is just going to be a straight up wonderful conversation. But before we get into it, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's happening in Dope Nostalgia news.
Hot off the presses? You gotta adjust those rabbit ears. You got that antenna pulled up? It's time for some Dope Nostalgia news.
Remember those awesome guests we had back on the show back last year? The band Riff, the R&B singing vocal group. They're amazing, right? Well, if you go to their YouTube channel right now at Riff Sounds, R-I-F-F Sounds, they just one day ago put out an amazing cover of the song You're the Inspiration by Chicago originally. But man, it just sounds so beautiful. Their voices nail it. Go check it out. Riff's brand new track on YouTube, Riff Sounds. Another past guest we had on the show has just released a brand new EP called The Sunset Sessions Chesney Hawks. You can check him out on Instagram at Chesney Hawks Official. That's CHESNEYHAWKES Official. Sunset Sessions EP with 4 brand new tracks. One of them a duet featuring Nick Kershaw. So Chesney Hawks, check it out. Joining me now for the show is another member of Farmer's Daughter, the amazing Canadian country group. Welcome Shauna Ray Samograd to the show.
Bright lights, big city, small town, ooh, so pretty. One of these days I'm gonna have to choose between Dear John and John Deere. Should I hit the road or stay right here from where I stand? Both ways I stand to lose. Is it gonna be cornfields or Cadillacs, subway rails or railroad tracks, slow bar swing, 5-lane fast track, dirt road, blacktop? Girl, don't look back, there's a fine boy in the rearview mirror with the trembling lip and dust bowl tears. He says, you gotta chase your dreams or chase me. What's it gonna be? Cornfields or cornfields.
And thank you so much for joining me today on Dope Nostalgia. And I'm so happy that I was able to contact all 3 of you for the show today. And wow, from what I understand, you're from my hometown, Edmonton.
I am an Edmonton girl. Okay, so I am actually from a very small town called Innisfree, Alberta. And
I know of it.
do you really? Okay, because the only thing we had there was what we called the Highway Cafe, and it's close to Renfrew, Murnham, and Vegreville.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Innisfree is my hometown. I left, we left, part of my family left when I was very young and I went to Texas. And so I grew up part of my life in Texas as well. But my dad and my brother always stayed in and around the Edmonton area. And my sister married a boy from Edmonton and they've got a lake house at Pigeon Lake. And so when I come home to Canada, even though I lived in Vancouver for many years, when Farmer's Daughter was touring, we based out of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. For me, Edmonton has always been where I go to visit family. And I'm planning a big trip at Christmas time. Haven't been home in a couple of years. This COVID thing has kind of kicked everyone's butts, but planning a big trip home at Christmas.
See, that's the thing I was wondering because, like, obviously, did you how are things going there where you live with COVID right now?
Okay, so I'm in South Florida. I am in a town called Lighthouse Point.
Mm.
We're between Fort Lauderdale and West Palm. Okay. So, I mean, I say Fort Lauderdale because people know where it is,
Yeah.
but it is a loaded question.
Mhm.
Our
Yeah.
numbers here are really not great,
Mhm.
but luckily in my community where I live and in my office where I work and the people that I'm surrounded by, we've not had a bad outbreak. My upstairs, we've had a few cases around us, but
Yeah.
I've stayed safe.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, and it's been difficult. I can understand why. Hopefully, by Christmas, it'll be so nice for you to come back to Edmonton and visit your family.
fingers crossed. Like this was the
Right.
whole thing with me coming from South Florida and my brother and sister being up there and my dad and my stepmom. My mom is down here in Florida. She and I are here together.
Hmm.
But they're like, do we really want to have two visitors from where you are, where the numbers are so much worse? And we had to pay attention to what was good for the kids, et cetera. So we have not been, neither one of us have been for well over a year.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I got to be honest with you. Alberta's numbers are not great.
I
compared to
know I've been kept abreast. My sister-in-law is one of the news producers at CBC.
Okay.
And so she feeds me very good information. I know they're not great.
Yeah.
They were for a while, right?
Yeah. We just got a new third lockdown last week.
Yeah.
Back to closing the restaurants and everything. So, but people are getting vaccinated slowly but surely. I guess it's progress there.
Doing the same here. I've actually just got my second shot on Wednesday.
Oh, good. I'm so happy for you.
My arm is
Did you have
still
any
sore.
How was your reaction overall?
The second one was a breeze. The first one made me really, really tired, and I got weird cold symptoms,
Yeah.
which is super unusual for me. I don't typically get the flu or the cold, but yeah, I got weird. The first one was tough. The second one, nothing. I mean, except that it feels like a bruise.
So you got a strong immune system.
I think so.
That's what you need.
Yes.
So what brought you to living in Florida?
Well, a multitude of things, but really honestly, my mom and her partner, her husband of many, many years, they've had this wonderful place to live. It's been what we consider a family vacation home for a lot of years. And he fell ill, and we were dealing with that. And she was here with this place, and she was on her own. And I was in Nashville, and I was going through a pretty, I have to be careful with how I phrase this. I was going through a divorce and a liquidation of my businesses there. And the stars aligned so that it made sense for me to come here at that time with the business venture that I had going, with what was happening with John and my mother. And so, I've been here ever since. And but why it's complicated is because I went to college down here.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So I'm an international relations and political science major. And
that's wonderful.
FIU in Miami there was two programs that I was looking at when I graduated, and I graduated from a boarding school in Alberta, in Lacombe.
Okay.
I was looking at ASU and FIU, and I chose FIU, and I'll be completely honest, because I decided I wanted to live near the ocean over the desert.
Right.
It's all about location, baby. So I came to FIU, and I lived in South Beach, and I bartended my way through college, and I worked for Ralph Nader, and I did all this wild, not crazy wild, but academically just really interesting stuff. And I fell in love with South Florida. And I knew when I left, to start the band Farmer's Daughter. My cousin Jake, who I know you've already done the thing with, she called me and said, how do you feel about coming up to Vancouver and doing this demo? I have this idea. And I was like, I'm going to South America and I'm going to take my degree and I'm going to be a research person and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, just come up and do the demo.
Yes.
I was like, what could it hurt? And then I got into the studio with her. And at that time we were still trying to find, that perfect third. And I got into the studio and I just moved to Vancouver and went on the road.
You just knew.
I knew, within 30 minutes of the recording process, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now. Yeah.
I'm so glad you took that chance. I bet you've had such an amazing career of memories during that time.
I think that we were very, very blessed overall. I think Jake and Ange will say the same thing. You know how you work in it, the music business, the odds, and
right.
for us to have had the longevity that we did for the amount of time that we did to do what we got to do. I think all three of us feel like we worked really hard. Like there's no question about it. We worked really, really hard. So it's not all luck, but there is some luck involved,
Oh, there is, because there's some hugely talented artists out there who never catch a break.
That's right. That's exactly right. And some of the hardest working artists that I know don't have any sort of the recognition that they should. And the most talented. So, it's when sometimes you have a perfect storm and maybe the three of us are that, just maybe that's what we were. The three of us, I like the idea of the three of us being a perfect storm. That would be a good album title, actually.
Mm-hmm.
We hit the right things at the right time. And it doesn't always work that way. You know that.
No, absolutely not. It is like a storm. It's like that lightning strike right there. Now, with both of you being cousins, you and Jake, does that mean that there was a musical inclination in your family?
100%.
Like your parents and such are also musicians?
100%. So Jake and I are related on our mother's side. So her mom and my mom are sisters. Jake and I are first cousins, right? Jake's dad is also an incredible musician, Jerry. That's who her mom married, and then he became our manager. And they did the gospel, the Leiskys did the gospel train. Mm-hmm. But my mom also did the gospel train with Rita and Jerry when we were all kids. And my mom's that whole side of the family grew up where I guess kind of like it, like, have you talked to any East Coast musicians?
Yes.
Maritimers? You know how the family culture or the social culture is really based around music?
It's like what do they call that? The Nova Scotia kitchen party?
Yeah,
everyone's
the kitchen party
together.
I think that's the way my mom's side grew up. Like that was kind of the way that they entertained themselves. And there was 7 kids in that family and they're all really talented. And so were my grandparents. And so they all play instruments. Like the brothers can all sit down and like play the piano and the sisters all sing harmony. And for them, that was just normal. And so, yes, we did grow up that way. And so Jake's mom and my auntie Rita and my mom, Willie, and my uncle Jerry, who's Jake's dad, and my dad, who's Marvin, who still lives in Alberta, they were all on the road together. My dad drove the bus and ran sound and they all sang, and they just packed up the kids and we were like, we're going on tour, and we're like, yay. And we've got a nanny and a tutor. But so that was very much normal for us. Yeah. And my mom and Rita and my uncle Jerry, they, Jake and I have a sister and she's in Alberta. She's also a very good singer. She's like, that's just not me. I'm not like whacked out enough to be an artist. And she's not. And then me, I was the little bitty one. They taught us to sing 3 parts when we were like, I don't know, 2, 4, and 6. And then they would they would throw us out on stage with microphones in the center of their gospel show and be like, let's welcome the kids. And then I mean, we were literally singing 3 parts since I think I was 2, maybe 3. But there's a picture of it because I think my mom and Jake's mom exaggerate a lot, like a lot. But there's a picture of us on stage with our microphones, and I swear to God, I just got my glasses. I'm 2 years old. And so I'm like, oh, well, but maybe they didn't exaggerate that one.
That is young.
Oh,
But isn't that amazing though?
look,
Because
my mother is here, and she just brought the picture that I'm talking about.
oh wow.
You can hear me. She just brought this in. She just snuck it in. She's like, here's the picture. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Willie.
She can hear me.
So,
That's wonderful.
so yeah, I mean, that is how we all grew up. And Jake and I think we also lived in Paris together. Because who doesn't, when they graduate high school, just move to Paris and become a nanny? My sister Jake and Stephanie and I, we all went to Paris together. We worked as nannies, jeune vieux père. And at that time, we also were street performers, because also who doesn't do that? Because it's normal. But Jake and I learned at that time in our adult lives that when we sang together, there was a genetic connection.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in totally opposite ranges. Like I'm I have a very low range. I'm a contralto. She has a very high range. She can sing higher and more powerfully than almost anyone I know. And that's why we always had to find that middle person. Cause we're like here and here, but we learned when we were living in Paris that when we sang together, something clicked. And that I don't think, like I look at like other harmony bands like Wilson Phillips, and I think they have the same kind of a thing where they're related, and there's something about it that's just weird.
It's almost like you know where the other person's going to go.
Indeed.
Before they do it.
Indeed. There's an intuition about it, but there's also this weird, there's a tonality and a lock when you go to parts where it locks in, and it's a Zen thing. And I'm sure there's lots of listen to the Jack. There's so many family bands. There's a reason for that. It's because there's a family connection. But then Jake and I also had to find that center, and that center was there was a couple of other people that didn't necessarily work, and then we found Angela. I always call her Kelman, and I apologize in advance because she doesn't really like it. Then we found Kelman, and the lock was what we knew it instantly, because her voice somehow fit with our voices without trying.
So much to do with harmony is about tone, just like you said, the tonality of it. Everyone could be hitting the right notes, and it's not necessarily right unless the tones match. Right?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
So, and it's amazing because there's a lot. Singing harmony is not easy for a lot of people. A lot of people can't do it.
It's true.
They can't separate in their mind from the melody.
It's true. A lot of people just don't it does not make sense to them. And then there's some people who you could hear a harmony as easily as you could hear a melody. Mm-hmm. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. I think that those people come out. I think everyone comes out a certain way.
Yeah. I think it can be taught, but I think finding a harmony is more of a natural inclination.
I think it's an organic process. I really do.
Yeah. That's one of the best things I find is when you hear that harmony that just hits, or while you're singing it yourself, and it just feels so good when you hit the right, mix with the people you're singing with. It's just beautiful.
You know it. So you're a singer.
Yeah.
Of course you are. Of course you are. I mean, that's you wouldn't be doing anything this interesting probably if you were not.
It's definitely the reason why I wanted to start a podcast, is because of my huge interest in music, of course, but just getting to know everybody's stories and where they developed from and where they are now is really important. Like, where has life taken you since Farmer's Daughter?
It has been a very, interesting road. So when Farmer's Daughter started winding down, I had gotten involved with our guitar player. When I say gotten involved, we ended up married. I mean, he was 17 years we were together, and he's from Nova Scotia. So during all the years that we toured, I spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia, and it's one of my favorite places on the planet. Shaker, so his name was Shaker, is Shaker. He's still with us today, in the world. I mean, and he and I had decided that when Farmer's Daughter started winding down, we wanted to go to Nashville. We both had wanted to go to Nashville for many, many years. And so we did. We worked on, I got a couple of publishing deals that were a little bit transient. So I was working with different publishing houses. I just worked on the road as a writer for a couple of years. But then we started another band called Shaker, and he and I picked up a development deal and we worked on getting signed to a major label in Nashville with a very impressive group of people and a fabulous band that he and I put together. And the producer of Diamond Rio, his name is Mike Clute. He's to this day one of my favorite people. We worked really hard for about 5 years to make it go, and we just didn't get the traction that we were looking for. And so that was 5 years after we had moved. At that point on the road, I was growing a little bit weary, I'll be honest. So I decided, in my infinite wisdom, that it would be a fabulous idea for me to, I'm a yogi and have been for years. I love yoga almost as much, not as much as I love music, but almost as much. So I wanted to open a yoga studio, and then a friend of mine was looking at opening a cosmetic bar, and then we decided that we would blend the two with a day spa. And so anyways, I ended up in the day spa business. I owned and operated 2 different spas in Nashville for a good almost 10 years. And the first one that I opened was Magnolia in East Nashville. And I don't know if you've spent any time in Nashville, but East is my hood. East Nashville is one of the most interesting, wonderful, artistic. It's where just all the musicians and artists live. So I ran my day spa with my partner there, and for a good long time. Picked up another one in Hendersonville, bought a house out in Hendersonville, lived out in the country for a good long time, which was different. And I mean, it was a beautiful house it was a great house on 5 acres. But what I discovered at that time really is that I'm kind of a little bit more of a city girl.
Right.
But so yeah, those were the Nashville years. And I was in Nashville for dating and aging myself, sweetie, darling, 17 years. Yeah. And that's what I was doing. I was doing music, and I was running my own businesses, and then I came back to South Florida. And that had a lot to do with what was happening with me personally and the marriage. And it was time for a change of scene. It was time for a new scene. East Nashville has changed dramatically. Neither good nor bad, just not the thing that
just different.
Yeah, just different. And like not the thing that I fell in love with, not necessarily the neighborhood that I fell in love with. I still love to go back. My people are all still there, and I visit Nashville often. So I came to South Florida. I resumed sort of I wanted to be near the water. I want to be able to go to the beach when I want to go to the beach. And I was working for a floral repurposing company, which was based out of Manhattan. And we would go to big events where there was a great budget for florals. And then we would collect them, break them down into smaller arrangements, and deliver them to nonprofits. So I came.
Wonderful.
It was fabulous. It was super fabulous. Jake actually and I worked together on that project for a little while. And then that sort of ran its course, and I have gone to work I've become a logistics account executive, and I'm working as a freight forwarder, not a freight forwarder, I shouldn't say that. I'm a broker now, and I move freight around the world internationally.
Sounds lucrative.
It is, and it's challenging and it's bizarre. There's the percentage of women that work in this field is very, very small. It's a very aggressive environment, which sounds weird for a songwriter to go into, but it's been very challenging for me. And I've been doing that now for 2 years, and I quite like it.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
Save my tears 'cause I've done my crying. There's no use in me denying my old friend, this lonely gypsy. Lord, I'm getting that feeling again. Feeling kinda restless and it's hard to pretend. The same anxiety is settling in, that I'm close but I still ain't home. But you don't know the life and the time I've spent trying to get the leaving out from under my skin. I get myself convinced and then the ties that bind unwind again. Heaven help me when it starts flowing. Try to fight it but I know I'm going. There's a place that's calling, destination I don't know. Save my tears 'cause I've done my crying. There's no use in me denying my old friend, this lonely gypsy.
What's as a performer now over the years, did you always feel you were a natural on stage, or did you suffer from stage fright at any point? How easy did it come to you to do live performance?
That is a wonderful question, actually. You know that there was nothing really about being on stage. I was never bothered about being on stage. I think that part is natural. In fact, I'm quite at home performing. I'm quite at home singing and being in front of an audience. The only thing that weirded me out about that whole process was once you achieve a certain level and you become like, people somehow find your life interesting. And then you kind of have to, it's weird, like getting out of the bus at a bus stop at 3:00 in the morning in the middle of Manitoba, looking and feeling not great. And then there being people there who want to take a picture with you or get your autograph. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the part where people started focusing in on what you were doing all the time, that was the only part that was ever weird to me. The singing and playing part, as long as I had Jake and Angela next to me and our band, who they were just killer, all of them all the time.
Yeah.
That part was just fun. Like really, really fun.
And that's when you're on, that's when you're working, that's when you're in your groove. And then it feels like there's a sense of loss of privacy from what you're describing, where you don't have your down moments just to be a normal human.
A little bit, yeah. And it's not like, I mean, we were famous to a degree, and we weren't like superstars. We're no Celine Dion, but there's this weird thing that comes along with it, where I give all celebrities, like really, really famous people like Beyonce, huge props for being able to deal, because there's a point at which, if you're like, what if you have the flu and you're really tired?
Yeah.
And you don't want anybody coming up to you, or you don't want people taking pictures. That sounds like a silly first world problem, and I 100% recognize that. All I'm trying to say is that was the only part that I found awkward.
Right.
The rest of it, like singing, playing, writing, recording, that to me was all just fun.
you can't be expected as a human being to always be on.
I don't think so. And people
You
are
know?
also really hard on you. Like, I remember musically, I think that the press was always quite generous with us. They were always quite good to us because we are very solid musically. Like, as a band, we were very solid. I think we made good choices. We were always very serious about what we were doing creatively. We were serious as writers, and we were very serious as performers. We put a lot of energy and time into our show. We took it very seriously. But I remember times where we were really panned in the press for our appearance, for our wardrobe choices or our hair choices. And it's like, really? Is that the most important part? Because I don't know. I feel like there might be a more important message in what we're singing than what we wore.
And why? What did they expect you to be wearing? Like, you were well presented, beautiful outfits put together wonderfully. I don't know what anybody would expect otherwise. You know what I mean?
But here's the deal is that everyone has an opinion. Like, I mean, everyone, including, it doesn't matter like what walk of life, what profession, where you came from. If you have listened to Farmer's Daughter, which I'm grateful that anyone did, then you have an opinion. And people don't care. Like, they will walk up to you and tell you their opinion. It's just like, really? Because we labored over that song for like, I don't know, maybe 2 months. And you're here to tell me that you think that this part of it is wrong or weak or it's very, but also with the appearance thing, I think people who are in the spotlight in general, it's really hard, but I think people are especially hard on women.
Yes. Especially
hard on women. And when it's a 3-chick group, it's just like all holes barred. Like, people don't care. They're just like, well, that looked good. That didn't. That was great. That was horrible. I don't know. That part was weird too.
The expectation out of a female performer is ridiculous at times. I mean, look, the biggest example is look what happened to Britney Spears.
I know, right? Here's the deal. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, so everything that she did and everything that she's accomplished. And now we're focusing on, I'm sorry, what? Yeah.
Right. Like, she's worked very hard to be where she is, and people are focusing on trivial things. They're making up things about her. They're just, it's terrible that women have to go through things like that in this industry.
It is. And I don't know that it will ever change. You have to be thick-skinned, and this, you have to be thick-skinned as hell to keep some sort of compass about yourself. Like, you have to know what you have to be. I give people like Beyonce an incredible amount of props because I don't think Beyonce has ever lost sight of who she is as an artist. Doesn't matter that she's a superstar. It doesn't matter that she is, one of the most sought after. She's just a superstar, but she still keeps coming out with really interesting music.
Yep.
And her performances are always interesting. There's several. I mean, we could go on and on. We could talk about this for hours.
It's true.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Podcasting is so much fun, but it's kind of expensive too. We got to pay for stuff like licensing fees, hosting fees, long distance phone calls, etc., etc. You get the drill? Okay. Well, we have a new thing called Patreon. Now, Dope Nostalgia has a Patreon account where you can subscribe to premium content. And what that means for you is for the very low starting price of $1 a month, you'll be able to get the podcast 2 days in advance of the regular release. Not only that, $3 a month, you get exclusive video content just for you guys to check out, bonus stuff all the time that you don't get with the regular show. So check it out, patreon.com/dope nostalgia. Become a subscriber today and get all the good perks.
tonight, from wherever in the world you are listening, give a big hand for your host. Here's Ainsley.
Hello, I'm Ainsley Beckley-May from Price Tag Pod, and I'm so excited to be a part of the Dope Nostalgia podcast. Price Tag Pod is a new cheesy game show podcast due to release on April 2nd. Price Tag Pod attempts to put a price tag on your dignity, and to do this, the show breaks down into 3 easy parts. First, we ask our guests 11 uniquely ridiculous questions.
£376. You have edible glitter in all of your drinks for life.
Oh, who would agree to that? No, never.
$500, Tim.
Oh, $500.
For the whole of next year, you have to have a mullet and a mustache.
Ooh.
$100. Would you drink from your best friend's toilet bowl?
Oh.
Next, we negotiate a price.
£110.
I think it's definitely worth more. How much you got, pal?
Give me a number. Let's do 2 hours of your pay then. Let's do $22.
$22.01. I'll take $22.01.
All right, we'll do $22.01. You just want a weird number, right?
Then at the end of the show, we calculate the total.
$370,784.95. You were worth $395,717.
Nice. That's like almost a 2-bedroom condo where I live.
And that's it. We have fun, the guests have fun, and we see how cheap or expensive people's self-worth really is. To follow the show, just type Price Tag Pod into your friendly neighborhood Google engine, and we'll show up somewhere. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the show.
Where's the ring? Here's the ring. Ring pop.
You can wear a ring around your finger, ring pop.
I love the way a ring looks. I love the way my ring tastes. Ring pop.
It's your juicy jewel flavor, ring pop.
Will you wear my ring? Ring pop.
Ring pop. It's a lollipop without a stick. A ring of flavor you can lick.
And tart and sour blue raspberry too. So now you can get off the stick and get a ring.
Ring pop. Calling all you cowboys, these ladies wanna dance. We're kicking off our high heels and looking for romance. Don't want no city slickers in their shirts and ties and pants. Calling all you cowboys, these ladies wanna
What was one of your most memorable performances in Farmer's Daughter?
It's a very good question. I go back to Freeway at the CCMAs. And this was a big one. I have another one that was the opening of the museum in Nova Scotia, but we were allowed to debut a brand new song that had never been played on radio at the award shows, at the award show at the CCMAs, which is not protocol. They don't want artists coming on and playing new material. It's an award show. I mean, the artists are there to celebrate what they've done in the past year, and the fans are watching because they want to hear you perform those songs that they know from the radio.
Catering to the masses.
100%.
Basically. Yeah.
You know what? No one's moving any. At that time, we weren't moving any. Nothing was moving if we weren't catering to the masses. But the CCMAs allowed us to debut the first single of the third album, which was Freeway, on that award show. And it was a risky move, and it worked out. Although we did get some weird reviews on the clothing on that one. But that was it was big because we fought for it. And part of what we did as a team, which was me and Jake and Ange and Jerry, our manager, part of what we did was we really stuck hard to what we believed in, and we smashed through a bunch of barriers. Mm-hmm. And that was a big one. Jerry was just like, well, if you want Farmer's Daughter to perform live on the show, we're going to do the brand new single. And they're like, well, no one knows it. And he's like, we don't care. And they said, okay, we want you on the show. That was a big deal. It was a big deal. We were invited to open the Hank Snow Museum it's in Nova Scotia. It's a small town that has a British name. That was also a big deal. Like it was paying homage. There's certain Canadian artists that have so come before you, who have so broken down so many barriers before you. That was truly an honor. And then one other really silly moment, Farmer's Daughter, we got to be included in a lot of shows that were not country centric. And we were invited at one point to do the Des Moines Jazz Fest. And we were in New Brunswick or Ontario. It might have been Ontario, at this beautiful theater. And there was all these fabulous performers. And we were kind of new kids on the block, and we were also the only country act there. And Bruce Coburn was playing it, right? And
wow.
there was more than one time when all three of us were just starstruck at the same time. But I'm such a huge Coburn fan. And they had set up the green rooms in the back of the theater with just like curtains for partitions. So Jake and Ange and I had our own little green room, and Bruce Coburn happened to be in the one next to us. And so we finished the show, and he could hear us, because with three women in one dressing room, the talking never stops. He could hear us, and he basically kind of fake knocked on the curtain, and he was like, "Hey, Farmer's Daughter." And we're like, "Hey, what?" He's like, "It's Bruce Coburn." And we're like, "Oh." And he goes, "I got a bottle of wine. Do you want me to bring it over?"
Oh.
It just went. And so he comes through the curtain with this bottle of red and an opener. And we shared a bottle of red wine with Coburn backstage during the Des Moines Jazz Fest at this theater. And I will never forget it. And
that's such a cool experience.
He was so freaking cool. He was such a gentleman, and he was so elegant, and I was so starstruck, and I'm going, I cannot believe this is happening right now.
Mm-hmm. What a good story. I'm so glad you shared that.
That was a good one.
If you're thinking back to the albums and the music that you made with Farmer's Daughter, what is one of your favorite deep cuts that never was a single? Take your time. I can always edit if it takes a while to think about it.
Again, that's such a good question. There's a couple of them. Okay, first album, Overwhelming Sense of Goodbye. And I Could Use a Little Tenderness. Both of those. Second album, This, That, and the Other Thing.
Cool.
And Inclemency.
Yes.
Inclemency. Such a good song. And then third album, I kind of wished off of This Is the Life that we would have released. There's two of them. I got two from each. That's kind of not generous. The title track, This Is the Life, is I think, not because we wrote it based on the story that we all experienced at the same time. Like I've got this great sentimental attachment to it, but I just think as a song and as a vocal performance, Jake sings the lead on that one. It's extraordinary. And I kind of wished that we would have released and made a single out of Let It Ride, the BTO cover.
Sometimes you can't shake the rain when it keeps falling down, down. Sometimes these clouds make me feel so sucked in. Maybe I'll leave this town. Nobody It's harder on days like these to make up your mind about the simple things. I look out and all I see is this damned inclemency.
On the BTO song Let It Ride, Randy Bachman was generous enough to come in and record that song with us.
Really?
Yes. So my ex-husband Shaker plays the mandolin riff, which is the original or electric riff. He just used, we did kind of a bluegrass version of it. Shaker plays the mandolin riff, but when it comes to the solo, Randy Bachman is playing, he's actually playing the solo, and he sings with us on the breakdown.
What was working with him like?
Randy Bachman was such a generous, good, sweet man. He was, again, starstruck, right? Like these are people from childhood that you have grown up listening to, and you're like, oh my God, is he going to come in here and be like what's he going to be like? He was so good, and he was so kind, and he was so just whatever you would need or whatever you want. Like, I don't care. This is fun. He hung out with us for the whole day. Jake and Ange and I co-produced that album. And so we got to have a lot to say about what was going on. And he was just like chill. He was so cool. He's like,
just happy to be there and be a part of it.
He really was. And he was like, you want me to play the original solo on an acoustic guitar in a different key? Really? And we're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, give me 2 minutes. I'll figure it out. And he sure did.
Yeah, we're going to need you to change the key. So
like, you want me to do what? But we're like, I don't know. It fits in with the arrangement. Mm-hmm. He did it. He didn't care. And we go, would you sing with us on the breakdown? He's like, well, what am I going to sing? I'm like, an octave below the lead. He's like, sing it for me. Sang one line for him. He's like, yeah, I got it. He's like, he just went into the studio and did it. Like, no big deal. He was awesome.
I got to hear that again. We're definitely putting a clip of that in the show.
Excellent.
There's any difference between American and Canadian country music? Any audible difference?
There, so yeah, I do, but it has to do with not so much what we consider roots music, where all of us take our inspiration from, where all of us grew up, what we listen to, and how that culminates into what we call country music that gets played on country radio. Mm-hmm. The Nashville scene is the Nashville scene is not what is necessarily being played on country radio in the States, but Nashville is producing that music. But if you go, like I lived there 17 years, right? And all Shaker and I, we were in it. We were in it as writers. We were in it as performers. He's a guitar player. He's wicked talented. He went on tour with Faith and Tim. I was, doing backups at the radio conference with Billy Ray Cyrus, of all people. Like, wow. We were in it. We were working on the road. We were in development with Mike Clute. It was every day, all day. And if you dive deep into what's actually going on in that town, even on Music Row and over in the East where all the cool bars are, And even on Lower Broad, the music is so good and there's so much depth to it. And the roots are so strong.
Mhm.
And then it filters up. It doesn't filter down in Nashville. This is my personal opinion, and probably going to piss some people off saying this, but it filters up to what they think is going to be the most marketable.
Okay. Yeah.
And here's where I think the difference I think the difference between what is marketable in the US is different than what's marketable in Canada. I think Canadians have more openness to like real roots music.
Yes.
And in the US, we've created, or they've given it a whole nother name. It's a whole nother genre, and it's Americana.
Mm-hmm.
And Americana is alive and well in the US. Does it get played on big radio stations? Mm-mm. Does that make any sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. So basically what's being produced in Nashville is made for making money in a commercial sense, but the actual country music roots is Americana, where in Canada, the environment of music is more like roots based. There's more influence from different, like, I think there's probably more influence from, how do I say it? Folk music, possibly.
Right. And we have this wonderful, like, you look at all native and any native artists, whether they're native Indian or native like Inuit, or if you look at all the artists that have come from the East Coast and the amount of the Maritimes takes their influence from such different places. It's Celtic and it's from bluegrass, but I think Canadians in general and Canadian radio in general are just there's more openness to what it is folk music.
More of a multicultural aspect to the product in the end.
Think so.
Where it's coming from. I do know, remembering growing up in rural Alberta, though, in junior high, the country music we were listening to was what was on Kissin' and CFCW, and
it was coming
and commercial
stuff.
It's
coming from the States. A lot of that is coming from the States. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I find there's a different openness between the two countries. I don't like if Farmer's Daughter, we were a vocal band that was, our roots are based in harmony, which really come from gospel and R&B and blues.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put it into sort of a country blender. Would Farmer's Daughter have ever really gotten traction in the States? Well, we didn't. Did we get traction in Canada and Europe? We did.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the music is so different, but what people are open to buying maybe is more different. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you make total sense. And one of the things that appealed to me about Farmer's Daughter was the fact that you could tell those different influences were there, and it wasn't just country, the harmonies especially. And the song that got my attention was Now That I'm on My Own. That song moves me.
Okay, so Daryl Scott is the songwriter, and if you ever have the opportunity to talk with that man, it's not, Daryl Scott is just a phenomenon. And he's like, when I talk about roots music in Nashville, where you can go to a tiny little joint like the Radio Cafe that doesn't exist anymore, and there's maybe 30 people in the room, and Daryl Scott is just up on stage by himself doing a full 2-hour show, and you can't peel your eyes off of him because you just can't stop crying because he's so talented. Mm-hmm. That's why that song is so powerful. It's because it was written by Daryl Scott. Now, Farmer's Daughter's version of it, that song is it is a force. There's no question. But it's in the writing also. Like
it's a combination.
It is a combination. It is a combination. It hit for the three of us like that perfect storm thing that I was talking about when we first heard it. we were like, wow, this is crazy rangy. This is going to be really hard for any female artist to, record and nail. And then when we worked it out parts wise, where we could share the melody and share the range, it became this thing. Like it just, that song just took on a life of its own.
Oh, totally. I mean, and there's definitely a lot of dynamics in it, like the very many climactic points. I love your pre-chorus. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's really good.
Thank you. That it's still, to this day, it's one of my favorites. And the video, a lot of people find really weird, but I still love the video with all of my heart.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple times since I've been talking with you ladies, and it always appealed to me. So thank you for making
good.
That's a beautiful
one of my
recording.
all-time favorites, that one.
And if you could choose one artist that's a relatively newer artist to cover one of your songs, which artist and which song would you pick? Which would be tough too, because you got the harmonies there. So, I mean,
I know. And I don't think that I would choose right off the top of my head. I wouldn't go for a band. I think I would choose Billie Eilish.
Nice.
Immediately, I would go Billie Eilish, and I would go, which song would I have her sing? I would love to hear her version of Lonely Gypsy Wind.
That's
like
cool.
Weird brother to take it and make it slow and weird like they do, because they're so good at it. Mm-hmm. And just have her take it, lyrically break it down and sing it however in the hell she wants to. That would be my choice.
I love that. Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be really good.
As a music fan, do you have any guilty pleasures that you listen to?
My only guilty pleasure, I work now as a broker, and I'm in this office with all these dudes. And they're mostly all younger than me, and they're not interested in like, yeah. So I have to if I want to play my playlist in the office, I have to gauge it against the fact that they're playing like Da Baby and whatever, like it's like just all this crazy loud aggressive stuff.
I don't even know what that is.
And
I'm just like so not hip with what's current.
It's aggressive rap music is what it is, but there's some really cool R&B stuff in there. It's just all new and it's all male, and I like Latin jazz, man. Like, I want to listen to Pink Martini. But probably my biggest guilty pleasure, who I can never stop listening to and I will never apologize for, but they mock me openly for, is Sade. I freaking love
That's Sade. Not anything to be guilty. Sade is a very talented artist.
She's wicked talented, but all the guys in my office are like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, no, listen, it's really good.
You've opened their minds. Got to open their minds to some different sounds. I love Latin music. Oh man, like authentic stuff you'd actually hear down visiting in a Latin country. It's beautiful.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, Sade is my guilty pleasure. Isn't that crazy? She shouldn't be, but she is, because they mock me.
Well, they're silly. What's a concert that you went to as a fan that changed your life, or just
straight
inspired
up,
you heavily?
I know the answer to this. Straight up, Gwen Stefani, no doubt, played on the riverfront in Nashville, and I was just living across the riverfront of that. Well, actually, no, I was still living out in the country at that time. And because Shaker and I had been there and been in the business for so long, we never went out to shows unless we were like playing or invited, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which sounds so bougie, but it's just the way it goes. You get tired of it.
You're already immersed in it day in, day out.
Day in, day out. It's like, it's not fun anymore. But so no doubt did this, I think it was Good Morning America, and they were doing a Nashville series. And so no doubt was playing on the riverfront, and it was like a free show. And Shaker and I were like, I'm going. He's like, okay, I'm going too. So we went, we got up close enough so that we had a kind of a good view. There was thousands of people out there. It was ridiculous. And I do have a bit of a crowd phobia. But that band live and her performance, I don't think she's like the greatest singer in the world, but she's one of the most interesting singers in the world. And her on stage, she's just magic.
Yeah.
And that band was so tight. They were so good. She could do anything. And they were just with her. She was up on the stacks. She was jumping off of shit. She was all over the place. She was throwing stuff around like her mic. She was that I watched her perform and I'm like, I have nothing. She was freaking amazing. And that band, I think No Doubt is completely underrated. Gwen Stefani is, of course, the voice of it. And of course, she's the reason that band became superstars. But musically, they're playing ska, man. That's some complicated damn music. And
it is.
They didn't miss anything. That was I had so much joy watching that concert. I couldn't take my eyes off any of it. I mean, I couldn't take my ears off any of it. It was fantastic. She's still my favorite.
That's amazing. I have yet to see her live. That's got to be on the list.
I don't know if she plays anymore. Like she's had all this, like she's moved into such a different mode.
She's like a TV star mostly.
She's a TV star and she's like such a glamour icon and she's such a fashionista. And Blake and her and she's a media circus just by herself. But if she ever reunites with that band, I would recommend it. Yes.
I would love to see like a real organic No Doubt reunion where it's back to their roots. And
exactly. And I think her brother is one of the guys in that band. He was like, they kind of had a Billie Eilish deal going on where he's the producer of all that stuff too. And the co-writer with her on all that stuff. There's just something there that it was electric. It was really, really good.
Well, the last question I'm going to ask you today is if you were to go back and think about the 90s, what food or clothing item, toy, anything would make you nostalgic for the 90s? Something that you remember that stands out?
It's definitely not going to be food. I'm not big on food, but it would definitely be clothing. And it would definitely, there's, again, two things. Why do I have a hard time bringing it down to one? I don't know. There was this weird phase that I think the Spice Girls kind of brought it on of platform tennis shoes.
Yes.
I miss the platform tennies and also pleather. I have to admit that the fake leather that you could actually afford, and it was skin tight and it was so tacky, but it was so cool.
Yeah, it didn't last as long, but it lasted as long as it needed to.
No, yeah, exactly, because you didn't need to wear it for 2 seasons. 1 season was plenty.
Exactly. It's funny because I was talking with Angela and Jake about Le Chateau because they were heavily part of your styling and everything at the time, the sponsorship and whatnot. So, I mean, there's
good to us. They were so, listen, I'm here to tell you, does Le Chateau still exist in Canada?
Yes.
I love the store. I still have items in my closet, and I am not kidding you, that are Le Chateau items, and I wear them differently than I used to, but somebody always asks me, where'd you get that? I'm like, well, it's a long story, but I freaking love that store. They were so good to us. And talk about being like, they were not just trend followers, they were trendsetters. And the best thing about being sponsored by them was that we could just go in per tour and go, you know, that this is not going to be fashionable next year. It's cool.
There's still things, though, like I said, that are in my closet from Le Chateau that I thought actually stood the test of time.
100%. I've got at least 4 that are in my closet right now that I still wear.
Yeah. From like 1993 on, that was one of my favorite clothing stores.
100%. I miss it so much down here. You know, the only thing that's comparable in the States is what's it called? Well, there's Forever 21 and HMS. Those two kind of do the same. Like they probably follow the business model, or they're owned by the same company. I don't know.
We do have Forever 21 in Canada now, and we've had it for probably, I'm say maybe 10 years. West Edmonton Mall definitely had a huge store.
Yeah, they're so big, right?
But they closed down a lot of their stores in Canada. So I don't know if is Forever 21 still in the US existing in retail shops?
Mm-hmm.
I love that store.
It is. I do too. Again, it's like, I know that I'm like over the age. I Forever 21. Like I should not be shopping in the store, but I don't care. Like if I'm looking for one specific piece, like I want something to wear out underneath a suit jacket that looks like a tuxedo jacket, or something sparkly. Just I don't care. I think they're fabulous.
Wear what you think looks good. Like, you know, enjoy yourself. I'm so grateful for your time, Shauna Ray. It was a blast talking with you.
I've had so much fun. I'm honored to do it. And I will I'm like that horrible friend of yours that invites you over and makes you sit through all the pictures of their family vacation. I will take any opportunity to talk about Farmer's Daughter and anything to do with it. I will.
You were amazing. It was a wonderful time. It's going to make a great episode. So
absolutely my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
No, he ain't perfect, this man of mine. He wrote me a love song and the words don't rhyme. He drives me crazy how he's late all the time. But I love my baby just the same. The reasons why are hard to explain. He makes me feel ooh, oh, I can't quite describe it. Something about that boy just makes me get up and sing. My heart goes ooh, oh. The only way to say it is just this, that, and the other thing. The other thing.
Thank you again, Shauna Ray, for being here with us today and sharing your story. We absolutely love you. Our next episode coming out is featuring one of the biggest house dance techno groups that ever came out of the 90s, Technotronic. And Daisy D is going to be here from the group. You remember Pump Up the Volume? Move This? Oh, yeah, you do. I know you do, especially if you're a fan of this show. So check it out next week, Daisy D, right here on Dope Nostalgia. Until then, everyone, take care. Be safe out there.
Hey kids, put down that Tamagotchi and listen for a second. You know, you can follow us on Twitter at NostalgiaDope, Instagram at Dope_Nostalgia. Visit our website at www.dopenostalgia.com or pick up the phone and call us at 780-851-8785.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work.